If I had a buck for every really bad 3 things, 3 signs that will let you know, 5 ways to know God's bringing you the person, 3 ways to get them hooked. If I had a buck for every one of those that was misguided and steering people in the wrong, I would be retired. Hey, welcome to the Dating Detox Show, where we help singles get healthy, date healthy, and build healthy relationships. If you've not already downloaded the Modern Daters Playbook, hit the link in the description area below. I'm Eric Wooten. With me, I have Aromi. And what do we talk about today? This is your moment, right? You were like, I got some stuff I need to ask you.
Yes.
And so I'm intrigued what this is all about.
I'm curious on when you're dating.
Okay.
Things you should and shouldn't say to a guy within the first couple months of getting to know each other.
So you saw some video or an article or something,
yes,
and it was 5 things you should not tell a guy. This is for ladies.
5 things you should not tell a guy while dating.
And so this is where it's hard for me.
So tell me, because I'm gonna read these and I may or may not have already said some of these things.
And so I may or may not agree with some of this stuff, but I'm guessing I'm probably not going to agree.
Okay.
Because so much of if I had a buck for every really bad 3 things, 3 signs that will let you know, 5 ways to know God's bringing you the person, 3 ways to get them hooked. If I had a buck for every one of those that was misguided and steering people in the wrong, I would be retired.
No.
We just need to do whole shows on responses to the foolishness. But anyway, I'm excited to hear 5 things girls should not tell a guy when dating.
Yes.
They didn't specify like when in the dating process.
No.
Okay.
I didn't even watch the whole video. I just went to the comments to look for the 5 things too.
The video was not even good enough to watch the whole thing.
I just wanted to know, what are the 5 things not to tell him? Because what if I already did? So, all right. And
Okay.
I may or may not have already said all of these things.
Okay.
So number 1, never tell a man about your trauma. Go to your therapist or your coach. Should you tell a man about your trauma?
You should not start out with your trauma.
Well, not on the first date, but I'm talking like maybe you've been dating for like maybe 2 months now. Like you've been dating for 2 months. Maybe they've done some things that have triggered you a little bit and you want to like be like, hey, this actually hits a sore spot.
So I would, here would be, I think there's a healthy progression of sharing is what I would say. So for instance, let's say I had a very dysfunctional, toxic, abusive home life, or with one of my parents or something. It was real abusive, dangerous. So early on in the dating process, as we're talking about family and different stuff, I may share, growing up, like my home life wasn't ideal and there was some unhealthy things about it.
Okay.
Layer number 1. We continue dating. A few months more down the road, I may share a deeper level of that. Well, it was, my relationship with my dad was pretty contentious. He was super critical all the time.
Makes sense.
Sometimes he would get, kind of verbal, that kind of stuff. So we don't talk a whole lot, and that's hard for me. Then like dating further, 6 months, 9 months, like we're getting into it, then I'm probably going to go more deeper level. Like, hey, he put his hands on me a couple times, the cops were called. We don't have a healthy relationship. And then because of that, I have a hard time trusting men or authority figures. So I don't have a lot of healthy older men in my life because I've gotten to a place. But I'm not going to start that on the first date. Like, hey, we had this toxic, I have a hard time. So I would say it should be shared in levels.
Okay, I agree, because I know I've like talked to a guy or known guys that are like, if a girl shares like they have like abuse, in their past relationships, that they're like, shh, like, is this just like one guy or is this lots of guys? Because I think guys too can hear what girls are saying and be like, well, what's triggering that? Like, clearly if there's either you attract this type of guy or you're doing things that may stir something up in that guy, right? Because I think guys have to also be protective of themselves when they're getting into relationships. Like, wait, what's happened to you before? Like, what do you say happens to you? Because if you said this happens to you with this guy, what are you going to say is going to happen with me and you? You know?
Oh, you mean like you guys are worried about false accusations now?
Seriously, they have to be, because things nowadays, I mean, if you saw the runaround that, I don't know his name. Anyways, some guy was literally being chased by his girlfriend down the street. He was in Creed with Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyways, you have to find it. But yeah, his girlfriend was chasing him and he was like trying to get away from her. And then he ends up losing all of his like media, like show deals, and he got convicted for stuff.
Because he had a crazy girl.
He had a crazy girl, and then she ended up like overdosing like in his closet, and he had to call 911 to get her. And it was just crazy. So
yeah, that is
I don't
crazy.
know.
So,
but if you have trauma, I think you
Well, so I would say, obviously, that's my thoughts on the progression. And that goes with everything. Depth comes over time in sharing, and it should be, mirrored. And there's lots of stuff around that, right? But I would say when you get to the point of like when I'm doing premarital with couples, so either seriously dating, thinking about engagement, or engaged, one of the primary key areas I want to talk about is what are your wounds, because that will impact a marriage vastly, and you need to know what you're signing up for. Like if I don't know what your wounds are or your trauma is, I may not have the capacity or the willingness
for sure
to be part of your healing process. Like I need to know what those are. So when you get to that point of serious dating, thinking about marriage, you absolutely have to be talking about those things. So I don't know if that guy was like, don't ever do it or don't do it early. I would say
things you should not tell.
I would say progressively, and then you absolutely have to talk
These are
about
like
those
never,
things.
like never tell a man.
Okay, he's wrong.
Never. It
Yeah,
says
he's
never.
wrong. Don't do it on the first few dates. Do it progressively.
These are things you never.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay. Never tell a man how many men you've slept with. Your body count.
Again, I think nobody needs to know your body count out of the chute. But again, as we progress and get more serious, I believe, now there's some people that would say, well, that doesn't matter. Hear me when I say, look me in my eyes if you're watching, body count matters.
It does.
Body count matters because it speaks to something.
It 100%
Now,
does.
I believe God can redeem people. I believe that we can have behaviors that used to be who we are and are not who we are anymore. But something led you to have the body count you did. Something led you to see sex or those interactions in the way you did. And so, yeah, don't lead with it. But if I'm getting into a serious relationship,
it needs to be addressed.
We need to talk about it.
We do.
Now again, there's a part of me that's like, I don't need to know every name, and there was 32 people, and I need to know the name of each one of them, and I need to know
how many times.
the
Yeah, we don't need to know
details and
that.
where you were, and like that's ridiculous. But to just be like, no, well, I just don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's
Bye.
concerning.
Yeah.
I agree.
So you
okay.
do have to share. I'm 0 for 2 on agreeing with him so far. This is great.
Okay. Next one. He tells us, tells us like me, because never tell a man you're a complete. Ooh, I've heard this before. Oh, and these are for the manipulator men. Never tell a man your complete vision of what you want in a man.
Oh, so the thinking behind this is don't tell him what you're looking for in a man, because then he'll just put out those things to get you.
Just that's it.
Yeah.
I've also heard one. It was like, I've heard this flip. This isn't on his, but it was like, don't tell a guy all the bad things the guys in the past used to do. Tell him all the good things guys used to do, because then that makes him want to strive to be better. And I've seen a guy do that. Like
Really?
we went to a birthday party one time and I was like, okay, so listen, I like to take guys to meet my friends, but normally the guys I take, I'm super outgoing and bubbly and they're a little bit more introverted. So it's like, I need you to kind of step up. Like you have to lead a conversation. Like if I step away from you, can you hold your own? Right. And I was like, and I've just had guys that just didn't really talk and they just sat there, and I look over, I'm like, are you having fun? Like I'm having to check in on them. Like they're my freaking 5-year-old. And I'm just like, I want somebody who can like own their own space, right?
Sure.
And so we literally went to this party, and I mean, he worked the whole room. He was meeting people, and I'm like, I don't even know who they are. Like, now you're
Right.
gonna need to chill.
He's like, hey, how you doing? He's like a politician.
Literally, like everybody's like, oh, he's fun. And even my girlfriends were like, oh, we like him, Audrey. And I'm like, well, yeah, me too, but he needs to slow down a little bit because I'm like, who are you meeting? Like,
I've never seen him do that before.
I've
running for office, kissing babies, signing autographs.
It was like the extreme,
Yeah.
but I felt like it was because I laid the ground of like, you know, I've had guys, I want to take them places, I want to take you places, but like he did this, he did that. So either tell them the good things that they did, and then they'll want to do more, or if you tell them the bad things, then they want to. If they're like a competitive guy, they'll try to be better. I don't know.
Guys are competitive, so I would think that would work often. So I'm not angry at him on this one. I think I understand the idea behind it, which is don't tell them exactly what you're looking for, because then they can just try to be that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would tend to just, you know.
I do red flags. Like I say my non-negotiables. Like I'll be like, I don't like guys who do this. I don't like guys who do this. And if you hit one of these, then let's talk about it.
Sure.
Because if that's who you are, then go. Like don't be around me.
Yeah.
So
I can get down with his number 3. I think I'm fine with that. I don't think there's any problem. That's not going to hurt anything.
Okay, this next one. Never tell a man about your last relationship.
False.
Right?
You've got that's the one thing I want to know. Again,
how did it work
progressively,
out? How did it
tell
end?
me about when's the last time, because that again speaks to relational ability.
Yeah.
That speaks to, well, I haven't had a relationship over 1 month. Well, then I need to know about that. Or I've never not been in a relationship. Oh, I had a 2-year and then a 3-year and then a 2-year and then a 1 year, and I'm like doing the math. I'm like, there's no gaps in there. That's like, you've been with a guy or you've been with a girl your whole life. Because that speaks to something. So I think past relationship, and if you hear somebody who all the breakups were the other person, you know, you get that person, it's like, oh, she was crazy and she was crazy or he was crazy. And, you know, I'm like, probably that's not true.
It would be good to say, like, I like this question. I think I'm going to start asking it. If an ex were to give you a review, what would they say about you?
What would be the good and bad things they would say about you?
I'm going to ask that question.
That would be good. That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
No, we need to talk about our past relationships. Again, I'm not talking about details, but it speaks to
how long
patterns.
did y'all date for? And then not only that, like, what were some of the pros? What were the cons?
What did you like about it? What ended the relationship?
Do y'all still talk?
Do you still
Do
talk?
they still have access to you?
Right. It's a whole nother
Is she still in your phone?
Right.
Do you still see her family?
Do we need to talk about anything?
I don't know.
We can turn off the camera and so I disagree with him on this one. So now I'm 1 for and 3 against with them. Yeah, you have to talk about past relationships. They speak to patterns.
I think this one goes with number 1. Number 5 goes with number 1 very similarly. Never tell a man too much of your family business. So I think a lot of trauma can come from family.
Well, again, I think this is one of those. So a lot of these lists are born out of pain, right? So
they all say never.
Whoever wrote this is like, oh, I've been burned by that one before, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's progressive again. You know, it's like I talk a little bit about my family. I'm not going to jump out and throw all my family baggage on somebody in the first 2 months, and it's now they got all this dirt on me, and I don't know them. So
true.
A lot of it speaks to we give people parts of ourselves informationally.
Yeah.
And we see how they handle it. And if they manage it well,
that
builds trust, and we give more. Now, you got too many people that give
everything,
a whole bunch of stuff to somebody that I don't know if you're trustworthy yet because track record is not proven. Or like I've been dating them 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so trustworthy, they're so amazing, based on nothing. Track record, like you don't know anybody. There is no way to know it, and you can.
Which is so scary.
Send me a message, call me, send me a DM if you disagree. You cannot know somebody under 3 months, period, ever. I don't care how much you've talked.
Wow.
Patterns don't show up. I
You did tell me this.
I can maintain. I believe.
How long should you date for that?
I believe somewhere between 3 to 6 months in a dating process, and a lot of this is subjective depending on how much time we spend together, all that kind of stuff. But generally, it's going to take between 3 and 6 months for real patterns to start showing up. Before that, it's all fun and games, and
I have so many questions.
And we're getting to know each other, and we can do that on another show. But
yeah.
So with this guy's never tell a guy stuff, I agree with one of them because I don't think
that's gonna shape him.
I don't think it's because that may if you get the wrong guy, it could give him the blueprint to manipulate.
I agree.
But
too many are doing that.
But the other 4, that's straight foolishness. That's not, and this is my problem. This is why we're doing this show. This is my problem.
Because 495,000 people have watched and agreed with that video.
Unbelievable. This is the problem. And now you got potentially 490,000 people that are now deciding to operate in a dating relationship with that playbook.
And it's very walled. I mean, how are you supposed to get to know somebody progressively if you never share those things? Like, that's not healthy. No. Like, especially, yes, have a counselor, have a coach, whatever.
Sure.
But like, if you're trying to get to know somebody, you have to be able to talk about some of the traumas you've been through. You have to be able to talk about some of the past relationships you've been through. You have to be able to share your family. Like, do you have a mom? Do you have a dad? Do you have brothers? Do you have sisters? Like, what was that family dynamic? What did Christmases look like in your household? What were the parent roles in your household? Because then those are the expectations that he or she could be having for you.
Absolutely. But this guy is going to get 2 people in a relationship who then maybe decide to get married, never sharing their trauma. And I promise you, working with married couples, I would say, I don't have a statistically proven survey, but I would say 80% or more of couples whose marriages don't make it, it's not necessarily a relational issue they couldn't figure out, but it was a personal trauma, woundedness that was never taken care of that made it impossible to relate in the relationship, right? I mean, like if I got abandonment, rejection issues from childhood that I have never worked out and healed, my spouse will never be able to correct me, will never be able to ask for, like, I need some space to like process, because that's abandonment. That any criticism is now rejection, which is going to exasperate everything. So if you follow that guy's thoughts about trauma, again, I'm not saying don't introduce your trauma in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Or the first date.
But if we're getting serious, before I say I do to you, I need to fully know all of your trauma. You need to fully know all of my trauma to see if we have the capacity to be able to be a part. Because I can't heal you, but I can provide an environment in a relationship that will either exasperate and trigger your stuff, or will provide an environment where you can process your healing and do that kind of stuff. And if you follow that guy, welcome to divorce.
Wow.
486,000.
95.
People. It's awesome.
Thank you.
That's
Eric.
my thoughts on him.
Well, then I think within progression, you should share some things. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in again. If you did not download the Modern Daters Playbook, grab that. If you have not yet subscribed or shared this stuff with people, 490 bazillion people are listening to
rubbish.
I almost called them a name. Get them some information that will actually help them in a relationship. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.